The Hunter and the Howling Shadow. The fire crackled in the heart of the woodland tavern, its golden light flickering against the stone walls. The air was thick with the scent of roasted venison and damp earth, but the usual chatter of weary travelers had hushed. All eyes were fixed upon a cloaked figure seated at the far end of the hall, boots caked in mud, a bough resting against the table's edge. By the hunter's side sat a great black wolf, its piercing yellow eyes gleaming in the dim light. It sat still, unervingly silent, its gaze sweeping across the room as if reading the thoughts of the gathered men and women. At last, the tavern keeper dared to break the silence. "You're the one they call Rowan the Hollow, aren't you?" The hunter looked up, pushing back his hood to reveal the sharp features of a young man, no older than 25. His dark hair was tied back, and a fresh scar curved along his jawline. "Aye," he said, his voice steady. "And this is Fong." The wolf's ears twitched at the sound of his name, but he remained still. A nervous murmur spread through the tavern. Rowan was no ordinary hunter, he was a slayer of the unnatural. A tracker of creatures that lurked beyond the safety of city walls. Where he went, trouble followed. The tavern keeper wiped his hands on his apron. "You're here for the beast, then?" Rowan took a slow sip of his ale before answering. "Tell me what you know." The tavern keeper leaned in. "It comes from the marsh at night. A shadow with glowing eyes. It's taken 3 hunters already, found torn apart like cattle. The village priest says it's a demon, a curse upon us all." Rowan set his tankard down. "Not a demon. A howling shade." Gasps filled the room. The howling shade was a phantom wolf, larger than any living beast, wreathed in dark mist. It hunted men for sport, striking with the silence of a shadow and the ferocity of a storm. "Silver won't kill it," Rowan continued. "Steel won't cut it. You don't fight a shade like a beast of flesh and blood." "Then how?" the tavern keeper asked, his voice barely a whisper. Rowan's fingers traced the worn grip of his bow. "You outthink it. The hunt begins." The villagers shut their doors as Rowan and Fong left the tavern, stepping into the cold autumn night. The wind carried the scent of the bog, stagnant water and decaying reeds. The full moon hung overhead, casting long jagged shadows across the trees. Fong's ears twitched. The great wolf sniffed the air, then let out a low growl. "We're being watched," Rowan murmured. He reached into his quiver and withdrew a blackwood arrow, its tip carved from obsidian and engraved with runes. It was not steel that could wound the shade, but sorcery, an old trick he had learned from the mages of the Frostspire. The marsh loomed ahead, a vast stretch of mist-covered water and half-submerged trees. Rowan knelt by the edge, examining the mud. Deep claw marks gouged the earth, their patterns unnatural, as if the creature did not walk, but drifted across the ground. A howl shattered the silence. Fong bared his teeth, his hackles rising. Rowan knocked his arrow and stood perfectly still, listening. Another howl, this time behind them. Then to the left. Then to the right. Rowan exhaled slowly. "It's toying with us." And then from the darkness, the howling shade emerged. It was monstrous, twice the size of a normal wolf, its form shifting between solid flesh and black mist. Its glowing white eyes locked onto Rowan, and its lips curled into something that was almost a grin. Then, it charged. Rowan loosed his first arrow. The shade twisted unnaturally, dodging with inhuman speed. It lunged, its massive jaws snapping shut just inches from Rowan's throat. Fong leapt, slamming into the beast's side, his fangs sinking into empty air as the shade's body dissolved into shadow. Rowan rolled to the side, loosing another arrow. This time, it struck true. The obsidian tip sank into the creature's side, and the runes ignited with a faint blue glow. The shade screeched, its body flickering like a dying flame. But it did not fall. With terrifying speed, the shade lunged again, knocking Rowan to the ground. Its misty claws raked across his chest, leaving behind a searing cold. Rowan gritted his teeth against the pain and reached for his last enchanted arrow. Fong lunged once more, this time grabbing the shade by its throat. For a moment, the beast flickered, half mist, half solid, and that was all Rowan needed. He loosed his final arrow, aiming not for the body, but for its shadow cast upon the ground. The arrow struck, and the shade howled in agony. Its form began to unravel, twisting into a spiral of black smoke. The mist rose into the air, dissipating into the night sky until nothing remained but silence. Fong stepped back, his breath heavy. Rowan lay still for a moment, feeling the icy burn of the shades wound on his chest. But he had won. The howling shade was gone. Slowly, he stood, brushing the dirt from his cloak. He placed a hand on Fong's head, giving the great wolf a grateful nod. "Let's get our payment," he muttered. Together hunter and beast turned toward the village, disappearing into the mist, as they had done in 100 kingdoms before, and as they would do again. For the hunt never truly ended.